If angels had business cards, they might read something like this. Many believe that angels are the warriors of God and all that is good, the presumed winners in a final clash with Satan and the forces of evil. In early Christian art, angels were reverently depicted on plain gold backgrounds, or shown as heavenly messengers, only partly materialized in the human world. With the coming of the Renaissance in the 1300s, this solemn view of angels started to change.
Angels were seen in landscapes and in interactions with human beings. And this trend continued to the point where angels appeared to have a sensuous life, and they appeared to have as much of a connection with the human as the divine.
By the time of the Renaissance, the angel had lost a lot of its theological importance and became more of an art figure.
One of the ironies of the way in which angels were depicted in increasingly sensuous and sensual context is that a kind of counter-response developed where there was a fear that this had gotten out of hand and that humans were copulating and fornicating with demons, and that demons were in our presence, in our midst, and we were in great and mortal danger of possession by demonic forces.
For some 300 years, this creeping fear of demons was actually fueled by the horrors of everyday life. Between 1300 and 1600, Europe endured a period of unparalleled violence and chaos. France and England bled each other dry in a string of wars that lasted 100 years. The Black Plague ravaged Europe, bringing an agonizing death to 1/3 of the population.
Demons were seen to be everywhere in the world, to tempt people, to lead them astray. Satan was loose everywhere, a formidable foe, and good angels seemed to recede into the background.
Christianity itself was torn by dissent. The split would end in the birth of Protestantism. But to church authorities at the time, it was a clear indication that Satan was gaining ground. The machinery of church and state, tooled up to combat evil.
The Inquisition focused a lot of attention on the demonic side, that demons were everywhere, attempting to turn people away from God.
In retrospect, we can see that the Inquisition itself almost was possessed by the very forces from which it was trying to protect people at that time.
But even while the Inquisition and witch hunts raged on, a few individuals were quietly observing, measuring, recording, thinking, inventing, testing, and discovering. Empiricism, the new scientific view of the world, helped diffuse the belief in demons. But in the process, the age-old belief in angels also came into question.
For most of the period in which angels appeared, going back to antiquity, their reality was taken for granted. They were real in the lives of people who reported them and in the world. But with the rise of empiricism, with the rise of an emphasis on show me, on verifiability, on confirming, on finding footprints, it was a very difficult time for angel lore.
During the 17 and 1800s, angels and demons were drained of their power. Even cherubs, the once fearsome protectors of the Garden of Eden, were transformed into little diapered angels.
We have taken all of the oomph out of the cherubs, and we have made them into these cuddly creatures that are more like house pets than the real cherubim.
We find angels appearing in architecture, in art, in ordinary household items in a way that they never had been before, as decorator items, as accessories, rather than as profound spiritual forces.
With every passing century, with every scientific or industrial advance, angels were pushed further towards irrelevance. By the Victorian era of the late 1800s, angels were little more than a picture postcard distraction.
In fact, their sole purpose seems to be to embody beauty rather than to be divine messengers or to execute some celestial function.
Even Lilith, the scourge of children and fearful mothers for 3,000 years, was turned into a sassy supermodel by Victorian artists. In the 20th century, the forces of evil came in the form of human beings and their inventions. Science and technology proved to be especially efficient as agents of death and destruction. Still, there were episodes that seemed the work of angels. During World War II, Corporal Dom Aquino served in an artillery unit attached to General Patton's Third Army. His off-duty quarters were in an abandoned house. One evening, Aquino heard a knock on the door.
I opened the door, and there was a captain standing there, and he had his helmet in his arm, and it was the red diamond of the 5th Infantry and the Red Cross of the Medical Corps. He said, "I want you out of these quarters now." I said, "But sir, this is my off-duty quarters. I'm resting." He said, "No, this is a direct order. Get out." So what am I going to do? I had to get out.
Aquino found another place to sleep. The next day, he returned to the building.
I went upstairs, and right in the spot where I was sleeping, there was a big hole that was shattered. A shell came into the window.
The previous night, German artillery had fired on American positions. Had Aquino slept in his usual place, he would have been killed instantly. When Aquino told his friends about the incident, they pointed out a glaring inconsistency in the account. The captain was a problem.
I was told that he was 100 miles away. The 5th Division was 100 miles. There was no 5th Division there, and there was no captain there. So I don't know. That's what I saw.
Is it possible that an angel made its way to Aquino's door disguised as a medical officer? A captain in the 5th Infantry Division?
Angels will do what is necessary to accomplish their ends. My guess is the angel looked as a person that would have been credible, believable to Dom Aquino. And it was more likely that he would in fact leave the house. So the angel did what the angel needed to do.
In the Dom Aquino story, you have a classic messenger angel. The question that always arises, of course, to any thinking, feeling person is why does God use angels to save some people and not others? And indeed, that is the fundamental paradox of faith. But what we derive from, say, an angel encounter is the hope and comfort that there are larger answers that someday will be revealed to us.
America's young soldiers returned from the Second World War to create a world of unprecedented prosperity and technological wonder. But it may also have been the last era in which science and technology were worshipped without question. In the end, machines didn't seem to bring happiness. As the 20th century wore on, humanity continued to unleash the forces of evil. After decades of being pushed aside, angels would finally be needed again back on Earth.